Everyone has a story to tell. Welcome to DingoTalk, where we explore the experiences that make us who we are. Here's your host, Carlo Guadagnino.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is DingoTalk. My guest this week is the head football coach of UW-Platteville, Coach Ryan Munz. But before we get into Coach Munz's story, I'm going to do what I've done every week. Also, welcome back. I know it's been 2 weeks since I've seen you, so... UW-Platteville is in Platteville, Wisconsin. They have about 6,500 students. Before aid, it's $21,000 to go there. After aid, it's $15,000. Their acceptance rate is 85%. Their graduation rate is 55%. Their top three majors are mechanical engineering, manufacturing engineering, and criminal justice. Also, when you're doing this and you're listening to this information, these are just the broad strokes of what UW-Platteville has to offer. Make sure that you speak to the coach that's recruiting you. Make sure that you talk to your guidance counselor, your parents, and those folks that are going to help you make this decision. And make sure that you're talking to the admissions counselors at UW-Platteville if UW-Platteville is where you are interested in pursuing your academics. To find out more information, you can go to www.uwplatt.edu. But without further ado, this is Coach Munz. What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is Dingo Talk. My guest this week is the head football coach of the University of Wisconsin at Platteville, Coach Ryan Munz. Coach, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, appreciate you having me. I know it's been we've tried to get this going for about a year now, and we finally got connected. So I'm glad to be here. Let's go. Let's do this.
Absolutely, Coach. We do it the same way every week. I throw you in the time machine. We're going to find out your story all the way to today. So 22 years ago, you decided on a college, and we've had a good run. So let's talk about how did you why 22 years ago was Platteville your decision?
Yeah, I guess I can attribute to I grew up about a half hour away from Platteville. My dad went to school here. My brother went to school here. I had a guidance counselor that played basketball here at UW-Platteville for Bo Ryan and some of those championship teams. And I showed up to school one day. He said, "Get in the car. We're going on a visit." I'm like, "Sweet, day off. Let's go." He took me down to Platteville, showed me what it was about and what it meant to him, and kind of opened up some doors. And obviously, you start that process, and we had a really good class as far as football and all sports are concerned, and we were able to do some really good things in high school, and eventually got recruited by the baseball team to start, to be honest with you, for being candid. And then the football kind of fell in its lap as a walk-on, and they gave me an opportunity to do both here, and it stuck. And now you're looking back at 22 years of flying the flag and wearing orange and blue, and became the unicorn, right, in the coaching world. So they keep promoting me. That's one of the things I keep telling people is that I started off as a graduate assistant after I got done playing here, and then became the running backs coach, and then offensive coordinator, assistant head coach, and now head coach. And they keep promoting from within and paying me more money. So it makes it an easy decision to continue to swing the axe.
When you got to be doing something right, you know what I mean? They don't just keep bumping people up if they're not doing the right things. So
yeah, we've been fortunate. Yeah, we've had some really good opportunities here. That's for sure.
Well, Coach, I think it's a good time. We'll jump right into it. You know, we were talking before we started recording about there's a guy playing that's starting his career in the big time, but that's not the only guy. It's not a one-off for you guys. How have you translated players into being able to make that next transition to the big time in the NFL?
Yeah, we if you look at our history, we have a fair share of NFL football players that have come through UW-Platteville way back even to the 70s. But in the recent years, we've had two of them. Obviously, one just got done with a career, a 6-year, 7-year career in the league, catching touchdown passes from some of the best, like Drew Brees and the whole 9 yards. And then, you fast forward and you get Justin Blazek to sign a free agency deal, go through rookie minis with the Cincinnati Bengals, and he's in it right now, right? And so one of the conversations is from our level at Division III, we have to develop our guys from day in to day out and from start to finish. Now, part of it is we get a high level of kid coming in. We always talk about it in the WIAC, and anyone that plays in this conference, it's scholarship football without giving scholarships. And so we start with those guys that didn't get those opportunities, and those are a small example of a small sample size of almost everyone that is on our team that could have walked on at a bigger school. They chose Platteville because we have great people around here, great coaching staff, great strength and conditioning, great resources, and great education, right? And some of those things that fall into that, it made it a total package for some of those guys. And we were able to develop their talent and give those opportunities to them, and they were able to use it. So it's pretty cool, very humbling, right? Because we know that's not the case everywhere, and not every kid gets that. But when you get a chance to talk about NFL players from your program at this level, man, that's a big deal.
Well, and you yourself, no stranger to some pro ball. You went overseas and did some of the. I have a couple friends that have done the Germany thing as well, and it's no joke, German football. So how did you find yourself over there? And I'm not even going to names are fine, but I'm not even firsty.
Yeah, the Firsty Razorbacks, man. So yeah, it looks like Arkansas over there. I don't know if there's a trademark infringement. Shout out to those guys. They've been going for a long time. Obviously, during the wars and World War II, football started over there. If you want a little bit of a history lesson, and then they took over. And when I showed up at Firsty, they hadn't lost a game in like 7 years.
Wow.
Right. So they were there, and there's different levels, and been exposed to that. And I believe I think 2009, in right out of college, and it was a really cool experience and professional. I could say, yeah, you're getting paid a little bit of money and free housing and free beers and all that sort of stuff, but they're bigger over there. It's true, right? Right. And so
It's a little different.
yeah, but I mean, yeah, 20, 22, 23, you learn how to be a coach, right? Because one of the things that's different is that football is not the number one sport in Europe. It's soccer, and it's completely flipped in the United States. And so we had to go through the town, and you're knocking door to door, inviting them to football games and explaining them what it is, and you're playing it, right? You were the ambassador for the sport, and you've seen that come. And obviously, vicariously, you watch those guys, and for the last 20 years, right? It's been almost 20 years since I've been over there, or 15 or whatever it is. And you see that program grow, and you're like, man, that was pretty cool. I was a part of that. And we talk about NFL all the time, but we've had a number of guys go on, and I think we do have a kid playing in Brazil this past year. So, that's an area that obviously you can be professional and other things besides that. And that's a great experience for anyone. I would always push it, always push like heck for that, because I think you learn about the game and a lot about yourself. So professional, sure, I appreciate that comment. I'll take it. I'm gonna tell my kids the same thing, but we'll leave it at that, I guess.
Now, Coach, to jump back a little bit, you said right after, when your playing time was over, and I believe ended due to injury, for your senior year, correct?
No, that's a funny story if you want to go down that road.
Okay.
As a sophomore, I was a starting quarterback. Played in the game, my chin strap broke, and the backup came in and threw 4 touchdowns. And so I finished off my career as a backup. So if I joke around that I was the best backup quarterback in the nation. I was also an All-American holder. They don't keep stats for that these days, but I held 41 straight games as a hold, and only my first one was bad, and I apologize for that, but that was on me. I was a
And
little
that
bit
was
nervous.
it.
Yep, the rest of them were locked and loaded. So we had a couple All-American kickers come through there, and maybe had something to do with it. But it also, like, from your accord, I think that gave you a perspective on coaching, right? Like, I learned how to be a coach in that backup role, because you're getting taught, you're preparing, you're doing the same things, and then you're having to help another guy win the games, right?
Yeah.
And so At times, obviously, you're everyone's best friend as a backup quarterback because you never do any wrong, but it also showed you how your impact can be affected without playing the game.
Hmm.
And that was not, it sucked at the time, to be honest with you. You all want to play, but it taught me a lot about the desire to coach and how coaches impact the game and how that matters, I guess, from support of a teammate.
Now, did that make it easier to transition when it was time to step away from football from the playing side? Did it make it easier to transition to being a coach? And how did it work coaching guys that you were teammates with? Like when you became a GA, you were teammates with guys
Yep.
that were on that next team. How does that dynamic work?
Yeah, going into your senior year, the guy that was competed with me was the same age, right? So we were doing this every year, and it was an open competition throughout the whole time until senior year when you're like, the dude, this is your spot. And so going into that year, you knew you had the only shot you had is if the kid got hurt, and you didn't want that to happen for the team. And so it did make it easier. Fortunate enough for me that they named me team captain that year. And I'd like to think it wasn't just a feel good thing. It's because
Mm-hmm.
saw that work and effort, and for what there's no gratification in being the backup quarterback and no stats, but that put me in that role to affect how everybody was, their mental psyche, right?
Mm-hmm.
Getting them prepped. And one of my roommates was a starting receiver, and so we talked to him about certain things and how we could do that, and it just, to your cord, yeah, I think it helped out tremendously. Be honest with you, as the head coach, it makes it an easy conversation at times when you're talking to starters and you're talking to backup guys because you can relate to that.
Yeah.
So there's some stuff that goes along that's people don't see
Mm-hmm.
until go through that. The transition, I'm blessed with the guys. There's a lot of respect there, right? It was easy. There were a couple of guys that are always awkward that are older than you and that you're coaching. But I was also in a protected role at the time as a graduate assistant that I just took my area and helped out where I could. And we had some advanced coaches at the time that took the major part of the awkwardness out of that, if that makes sense.
Now, what we talked about it right at the very beginning. 22 years. You've been in the same place for 22 years. What has kept you move? I mean, obviously getting hired, getting promoted, and whatnot is great. But what has kept you at Platteville for this time?
Yeah, the number one, the opportunities and the doors kept opening up, right? I always continue to feel growth and see
Mm-hmm.
growth. I mean, there's been some frustrating times. Of course, like anybody in those years, you're in that coaching long enough, it's not always rosy, right? But
Yeah.
the people here allowed me to, number one, be me,
Mm-hmm.
allowed me to grow, allowed me to fail forward, and allowed me to, showcase what I have, right? Now, what's continuing to motivate you is that I really feel that we haven't hit what we're supposed to hit yet. And I've thought that even when I showed up in 2002, that there's so much untapped potential at this place that we haven't got to yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, again, you fast forward, and after 20 years, you've been named the head coach. It's a really surreal moment because you were the one that got recruited there, and now you're the one in charge of that thing. And so there's a little bit of onus. Now,
Mm-hmm.
their motivations change in life, and you see different things as the head coach now. Not only do you want to pave the way for new guys coming in, but you also want to look back at those 20 years of guys that you coached and played with, and have them excited to wear Platteville football gear and be excited to be an alumnus and saying, holy cow, man, and showing them what's changed. Like
Yeah.
we showed up in 2002, to be 100% honest with you, we weren't ready with facilities. We weren't ready with staffing. We weren't ready with the weight room, right? And we thought we were, and everybody thinks they can overcome some of those things. But we have a weight room that is one of the best ones in the state of Wisconsin, arguably one of the best ones in Division III, and we have a full-time staff here that is unbelievable, and we have field turf facility, a 10,000 capacity stadium. There's just some really good things that have came because of the student population and just happenstance. Right now, there's
Mm-hmm.
some work that go into it, but you have 6,500 kids on campus and they need somewhere to work out, so you get the benefit of that. We've
Yeah.
also, in my opinion, in those years, like I bring guys that I played with, like ones, this isn't even the same place. I'm like, I know. In every year, something got better. And
Mm-hmm.
every year, there's an investment from somewhere to know that we're still tracking the way it should track. Now, has it taken a while? Yeah, it has. But some of those things need to happen, and it's small increments that makes those changes that eventually will make sense over time.
Now, recruitment wise, when you guys are kind of in an interesting predicament, right? There's a lot of D3 schools. I mean, your entire conference are all within the state of Wisconsin.
Correct.
So I guess my first question is no D2 schools in Wisconsin.
None. No
So it's
D2.
D3 and D1.
Yeah, and Madison, the Badgers are the only D1 program, right? For
Okay.
football, not just the football thing. Other
Yeah.
sports.
And then as a guy grew up in Pittsburgh, born and raised, played in the Whippeal, what is high school Wisconsin football like? What's the difference? What's the biggest difference between that middle of America and more East Coast football?
Yeah. That's a good question. And we've had some guys from the East Coast come play
Mhm.
for UW-Platteville, and I think those are very similar as far as what my biased perception as a Midwest guy, very blue collar, hardworking guys, right? Um, it's kind of a, gritted out high school football is what was the wing T. It's obviously changed as some spread stuff, and we get with the times, and the whole game of football has changed a little bit. But
Mhm.
I think one of the conversations is the collective group of Wisconsin football coaches, like this matters to them, right? And there's a lot of coaches out there in the high school realms that aren't getting paid squat,
Yeah.
and they're spending every waking minute. And that's just not Wisconsin. That's
Mhm.
everywhere across the nation. But we have our Wisconsin coaches clinic, and we bring coaches in from all over the place, and it's just a different feel. Now, again, I'm biased with that because I'm a cheesehead, right? Born and
Yep.
raised on Green Bay Packers and Brett Favre and the beer brats and cheese. It's a real thing around here. Like it's the real deal, right? So you're in that culture the whole time. I don't know if you know any different, but
Mhm.
it's a truly livelihood. And again, we've recruited Texas, we've recruited the West Coast, we've recruited that. For whatever reason, at this level of Division III football, it produces really, really, really great football players.
Mhm.
And not taking out just Wisconsin. Obviously, there's other teams with that are in Iowa and Illinois that are doing really well in the national playoffs, and the East Coast is getting some headwind too, And so, but you look at this area, and it produces it. Partially probably because of really the level of player that we have access to, right?
Mhm.
Like if you look at Wisconsin, the D2s we have to face are in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And if you that there's a conversation piece where our institution is reasonably priced, where the state system, and we are a state system, which is different in the D3 world, that they cut those costs down.
Yeah.
There's a lot of kids that will stay in state because it's cheaper to stay at a UW system school than it is to get a scholarship somewhere else. And they also know, and I think there's pride in the whole state of Wisconsin, right? Just like there's pride in every state to say, yeah, this is big time football. This is not normal, average, everyday football that I may be used to somewhere else, and you see it in everything. Now,
Mhm.
I'm not saying that to discredit anyone else.
No,
I'm
it's
really, but there's a huge pool of. I mean, our conference is stupid crazy.
Hmm.
Like
I
you have to look at it from an outsider and say, what are you guys are doing to yourselves? Like everybody's good, right? And
yes.
so it's just one of those things that you kind of beat your head against the wall a little bit, but you also know that iron sharpens iron,
Hmm.
and when you get to be where you're supposed to, it's going to be a heck of an experience.
Now, staying on the recruitment side of things, put us in the. We're a fly on the wall when you're talking to parents and a student. What are you looking for? Minus kid has to be able to play. What are you looking for when you bring somebody to Platteville?
Yeah, I know it's a cliche, but are they our type of guy, right? Do they fit Platteville, number one? Do we see them being able to retain in this environment? Do they fit our educational needs? And do they have a little bit of a work ethic chip to know that we need to get to the top? Because
Mm-hmm.
in our conference, right, we finished third last year in the conference and tied for third, and you can have those conversations all over the board, but we're all fighting for that piece of the pie. And are they willing to really roll up their sleeves and put in the extra work when nobody's watching
Mm-hmm.
and get us to that next level? Because any good organization, it comes from the top down, but it happens from the bottom up, right? You know that if the players are bought in and they're willing to do the little things right, then everything else becomes that much easier. And there's the cliches, but I think when you boil that down for us, like you said, can he play football? Check. Is he a good dude? Check. Do we like him? Do we like being around this dude 24/7?
Yep.
Check. Can I sit there and we have a peanut butter and jelly stand outside of our office. If he stops and gets some peanut butter and jelly, am I going to say, "Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?" Or are you like, here we go, right? And so it is a little bit of a cliche, but I think every coach looks for that type of person, right? And that's where I think message to high school recruits and things of that sort. It's just not Wisconsin kids.
Yeah.
Like we have kids. I mean, some of our best players. I mean, one of our best player came from North Dakota. Another one came from New York. We have kids from Florida that were really good kids that just fit our culture, right? They're all over the place. And that landscape of recruiting is getting a bigger and bigger map, especially when technology helps us and exposure and social medias and things like that. They're all over. We just got to find them. And obviously stuff like that helps you get on the map and say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, let me take a look at this. But coach, you have a great program for this. I didn't know that you were top in the nation in X, Y, and Z. Yeah, man, we'll take you. We'll take anyone that wants to come here and compete at a high level and get a great education.
Now let's talk about you tied for third in the conference, 7-4 overall, 5-3 in the conference, and the Culver's
Yeah,
Isthmus.
Culver's Isthmus Bowl. Yeah, it's a tongue twister, right? Yeah.
So, talk
They
to us
don't
a little
give you
bit.
a bowl of, yeah, they don't give you a bowl of cheese curds, contrary to popular belief when you win it, right? So Culver's is a fast food restaurant out here, and they have really good cheese curds. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure, guys, we're gonna get a bowl of cheese curds. That was our motivation to get a bowl
Was
of
to
cheese curds
win.
after the game was over, and they didn't give it to us, so we went and got some anyway. So
So,
yeah, that was a cool experience. So it goes to the top teams in the WIAC and the CCIW that don't make the playoffs.
okay.
So this year was us in Augustana College, all right, out of the Quad Cities, and it's up in Sun Prairie. A guy during COVID said, "Hey, how can I make Division III football better? Or how can I make an impact on Division III athletics that isn't there?" And he was actually a former basketball player. Ironically, he's a Platteville guy, right? We're all thinking about stuff. He played basketball here at UW-Platteville. He said, "I want to make a bowl game. There's no bowl games that I know of, or there's only a couple in Division III. I want to make this." And he pitched it to everybody, got the corporate sponsor, been doing
Mhm.
it for 3 years. I know the other teams that have played in it from our league love it. I hope the CCIW likes it. And it's just the 11th game, right? It's an extra bonus. And for us in our program, when I took over, we went 5-5, and this was another carrot in the stick for year two to go 7-4. right? And see a
Mm-hmm.
stepping stone progression. Now, again, is it what you want every year? No, but man, what a great experience for everybody in our program, and well deserved. And you get fitted for rings, you get championship gear, you get a huge trophy that you put in your trophy case, and memories that you'll talk about forever, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think it's a great model, a shameless plug for any conference that's looking to do that. Mike Shaw, man, he understands how that works. Reach out to him on his socials, and Culver's Isthmus Bowl. If you want to start something like that up, I would really recommend that, because it's worth everybody's weight in gold, in my opinion.
Who knows? Maybe I reach out to him. We have a Dingo Talk Bowl.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. Anybody, I mean, and it started relatively simplistic, right? It just started as a conversation, and then you just start picking teams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, 2024, I got a couple questions.
Yep.
I see that Wabash, Dubuque, and Lakeland are your
Yep.
3 out of conference games. The first one I want to ask you about is the first game of the year. It's Lakeland. I believe you're 95 days or so away from kickoff, somewhere in that range.
Sounds good.
Also Senior Day. So you're starting the season with Senior Day. Why?
Okay. You want the honest to God truth? The last 2 years, it's been cold, windy, rainy, and on the last day of the year, and I said, you know what? I really don't want grandma not smiling in her picture on Senior Day. So we're going to change this thing up, and we're going to make it so hopefully it's warm.
Yeah. Hey,
Like
that's the simplest answer too.
yeah, that was the motivation. I looked into it. One of our other coaches was at a different place, and they had done that too.
Mhm.
And on a serious note to some of that, we did have some conversations about that. And for us as a non-con, it's not easier to do things, but you get that game into a situation where you can actually enjoy it. You
Mhm.
still honor your seniors. And at the end of the year, like there's times where we're competing for a conference championship. And I'm not saying it's good or bad, but we take mom and dad out there. They're balling 5 minutes before kickoff, and we say, "Let's go get them, boys."
It's a
It's a
little
different mindset. Now we've done it for years like that. But again, that's the rationale reason behind it. If you want the serious conversation, it was just bad weather.
Listen, as a former football player, I think everybody's thinking wait, this is a great idea. Let's do this at the
Yeah,
Why are we
yeah,
doing this in November and not in
yeah. Our marketing, and people are like, that's no one's ever done that. I'm like, I don't want bad pictures. I guess we'll see.
you get a nice landscape too in the background and you don't have to worry about a gray day.
Yeah.
I see. So talk to us about the non-conference schedule, because is that, as a Division III school, I know there are some schools it's difficult to
Yeah.
get those games scheduled. How do you feel about the 3 games that you guys have on the schedule this year? And was it difficult to get them scheduled? I think Wabash, this will be the second year you guys go.
Just a
Correct?
1 year for Wabash. Yeah. So
Okay.
it is a very difficult. And we in our conference, we are blessed with really great teams, but only an 8-team conference. So that
Mm-hmm.
means 7 conference games. When you look at the landscape of Division III, most of them have an extra conference game. So like some have 9 and some have 8. And so week 1 and week 2, for the most part, are easier to schedule. It's our week 3 that gets to be extremely difficult, because most teams are starting conference play. And
Mm-hmm.
then the level of that, who actually wants to come play you, is a little bit different, right? So previously, and I know this is a model that other schools have used in our conference, we played a Division II team the last couple of years in that. So this year, Lakeland's on the schedule for our opener. Dubuque is right down the road for us. It's not necessarily a border battle, but they're 25 minutes away, and we're fortunate that our administration got together the last couple of years, and we actually have a 4 or 5 year contract with them, which is pretty
Okay.
cool. And then Wabash called us out of the blue and said, "Hey, we need a 1 year. We'll come to you guys. Are you in?" I'm like, yeah, let's go. And they're a really good program out of their conference, and they have some really good players. I know they just sent a quarterback, I think, to the league too. And so very similar setups, right? I think they
Mm-hmm.
finished 7, we finished 7-4. We always, in my opinion, when you set up non-con, you don't want it to be a juggernaut where you are beating your head against the wall for 3 games because our conference is already tough enough.
Yeah.
But you don't want it to be a cakewalk where there's a huge level of, hey, welcome to conference play. And so you try to get at least one game in there that's going to test your guys, especially new guys that haven't played. And I think we've been able to do that a couple times through this schedule.
Mm-hmm. Now, the last part of the 2024 schedule I want to talk to you about, and it's more or less because I'm a football nut and I like to hear these rivalries. There's a game between you and that I believe you referred to them as the team in purple.
Yes.
It's the George Christ Memorial Bowl. So that is how far away are you from the school in purple?
I love it. I've influenced you well, right? I'd probably say the same thing about us. 2 hours, like an
Okay.
hour. They're one of the closest opponents for us. Yep. And that history goes way back. The reason why it started was George Christ was our football coach here back in the 80s, early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, he passed away on a recruiting trip unexpectedly. And so Bob Rezowitz was the coach for the purple team at that time, brought up the idea of having a memorial game for him. And so both teams agreed to that. And there's a traveling trophy that goes along with it. And so it's anytime you get into that, right, there's always a conversation. Now, they're pretty good at what they do over there, so we won't sugarcoat that. And they had it for a long time. And fortunately, you're one for us. We were able to take it away from them and renew the rivalry.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's not on our wall this year, so hats off to them. But we started up that again. And anytime you have those trophy games, it's fun to play for, right? Because you have just another element that goes into that game during the season, and we all want to play for those extrinsic stuff, but you also understand that 365 days out of the year, that's a reminder of what the expectations are around here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been pretty cool, and it's a great rivalry. I mean, we have a lot of respect for them, and they run a heck of a program, and it's always a fun game. It's always a packed house, no matter what venue you're at, their place or our place, and it always has a lot of electricity that goes into it, and so you get to play in a big game every year. It's awesome.
Now let's talk about there's extra things, and this year specifically, there's been I believe they passed it already. We're expanding the playoffs.
Yep.
Was it time? Long overdue? Are you happy with the number that they settled on? What are your thoughts as we go into this 2024 season with the new playoff system?
I think How I Met Your Mother said it right. More is always better, right? Didn't Barney say that? Yeah,
Yep.
More is always better. I think, yeah, the timing was right. I actually, from being on the initial phases of this, they were talking about kicking this out to 25, 26. So the fact that we got it in this year is a little bit ahead of schedule from what they regularly established. And obviously with conferences and schools adding football and stuff like that, there was in the future going to be a point where there was all AQs and no at-larges.
Yeah.
Right. And so like you go back to 2019 and at-large won the national championship just in the recent history of that. And we feel like same conversation in our conference that the second or third team in our conference could make a real push for a national championship on any given year. Not again, not discrediting anybody out there, but having that conversation of, okay, let us know. You look at the college football playoff and how that's panned out and how they've expanded it. Man, it'll be interesting to see how that thing works too, of teams that were left out before now we're making a push to do that.
Yeah.
I think it's the right move. I think it helps out everybody in Division III. I think it gives another week of football for everybody. So who doesn't love that, right? There are obviously some downfalls to some of that stuff that you worry about later, but for me, for my lens, for our lens, in just the game of football at the Division III level, more exposure is always better.
Follow up to rule changes. There was another big rule that same day announced: maximum of 18 iPads being added to the sidelines. One, I've heard that your conference was one of the ones kind of on the fence. Were you guys gonna wait? Were you gonna implement it? Has that decision been made as a conference? And where do you guys stand, or where do you stand specifically with adding that piece of technology to the sidelines?
Yeah, the historical perspective on that too is that they passed this thing like 8 years ago in all NCAA for about a hot 2 weeks until the Division I said, yeah, we don't want to do this, and they shut it down. So I joke with everybody because at that point in time, we bought all the stuff. So we had Huddle Sideline, we had it all ready to rock and roll, we were geared up, and so we've been waiting 8 years for this.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you see it. Here's the conversation. Is it different? Yes. Does it create competitive advantages for teams? Yes. Does it help a lesser team at times? Yeah, it might. High school has it. NFL has it. NCAA doesn't. So when you go to talk to recruiting and recruits and things of that sort, not that it was a hard sell because not everybody did, but here's my conversation. If you don't do it and you're in non-conference and point in case Lakeland or Dubuque or Wabash rolls up with iPads because they're going to, because that's the game, what are you going to want to do? Like you're going to feel like you got a little bit of a disadvantage. And so if it gives you the technology, isn't that the game? I mean, use the technology.
Yeah.
It does create an element, and I get it. As a head coach, there's more game day setup. We don't deal with it as head coaches because we're talking to recruits and doing some of that stuff. If it doesn't work, I know it gets finicky at times. There's an issue. It's just one more layer that you have to worry about. But if you can help this kid out and see some things, and we're all visual learners in this day and age, then why not, right? No different. If you want to go down that next aisle, like I know Division I gets earpieces in their headsets. I'm all for it. Like
my question was going to be, are we heading for replay from
no
1
doubt.
down to 3? You know what I mean? Because I know in Division III, it's what, at halftime they can go and look, and at the end of a game. But can they do replay in the middle of like, you guys can't ask for them to go look at something, can you?
Not yet, but it's on the docket. We talked about it at a meeting. So there's conferences that will be doing it this year in Division III, to my knowledge. Yeah, I mean, I know Division II, I think almost all Division II is going to cut that loose a little bit. We have that back and forth, and it's only as good as your setup, right?
Right.
So how are you setting it up? And this isn't ESPN every day.
You're not going to have every angle and 35 cameras, and what you're probably at best maybe 2 cameras on the field and a big camera up on the sky, up the eye in the sky. I mean,
right. But I also say that too is, how many times have you watched film and those 2 cameras got something right that wasn't right on Saturday?
Right.
And like you can still, and I get it. You're going to miss them. You're going to do
happens.
It is what it is. They do all the time. But my concern is still slowing the game down. My concern is how is it getting utilized? Who's doing it? What does it look like? If it's done the right way, then I think it could be good. It creates element in the game. To know that when you walked off that field, every decision was right, or at least attempted to be right, and you looked at it, and you don't have to go to your team and say, they missed. I don't know what to do. You don't have to go to your conference commissioner, and this is the plug for officials. It's hard enough to get officials in the first place. They don't want to be wrong.
No,
they don't want to impact the game in a negative way. So not that you give them an out, but you give another set of eyes an opportunity to say, hey, no big deal. You got it wrong, but now you have a chance to get it right. Let's fix this now. And so it doesn't have to impact the game. I've had conversations with regional officials that come and monitor games and stuff like that. And there's a couple times this last year where I'm having a 45-minute conversation with that official about some of the mechanics that affected the game. And you swallow it because you either got away with some of it, right? You're the benefit of it, or it greatly affected the 2-minute drive at the end of the half, which would have helped out with points or some of that stuff. You don't know, right? But you don't also like hearing some of that stuff after the fact. So
Yeah,
I think the reality, I think it's gonna happen. I mean, we're naive to sit here and think that that's not gonna infiltrate the game here, especially if as soon as we get iPads on the sidelines, and that's a goal for this year. What's the difference when you put an extra iPad for the official? We already have the technology.
Which would be great, because then you just have them, here you go back to the play. We'll look at it a couple times, and maybe and again, like you said, maybe you look at it and say, no, I think I got it right. Maybe you look at it and say, I can't tell, or maybe it's blatant and you go, oh, wow, I'm really glad that I looked at this. Now I can go and change that.
Because we're already going to have the replay. It's just, can the officials use it? It's
right.
Kind of selfish if the coaches could use it, but the officials can't, right?
That's true.
There's one more reason to yell at them for no reason. So sorry.
And like you said, it's already hard enough to be an official and to get officials.
Right. So then as soon as you talk to them, they're like, yeah, let's go.
Coach, the last question I have for you before we get into the random 5, which I forgot to tell you about that. There's 5 random questions at the end here. But the last question is, what is, as a lifelong Division III guy, what is the significance of Division III football and athletics when we do all this for kids going to school and whatnot?
Still, in my opinion, at least today, the purity is still there in the game. This is still about playing football because you love playing football. It's not about chasing money, and I know NIL's infiltrating and that's what is changing the game and always will and affect it. But down to the root cause, if you would poll, I still believe a Division III player, that they still love playing the game and they're there because they want to get a great education and they want to represent the institution with class and they want to have the experience that is different. Now, I'm sure they'd say, I want a scholarship too, right? But
we all did.
Kids, yeah, we all did, which is welcome to genetics. Sometimes it doesn't help them.
Yeah,
but they understand that, and when they're done with this thing, I believe that they are a more well-rounded individual that's ready to take on the next step. And that has never changed at this level. We talk to Division I and II coaches, and they'll tell you that has changed and that landscape has changed and how that works. And they won't go into much detail because they're in the thick of it, right? But the purity and the integrity of what Division III is still there. And for all the old timers out there, I mean, that's why they did it in the first place. You can't sit there and say, oh, this is how it's always been. I understand that. Yeah, we never used to have cell phones. We never used to be able to do video calls. We never used to be able to do that stuff. But now it's a part of the world and it will make it better. So you can't fault the kids, in my opinion, for taking advantage of something that's on the table.
No.
You just got to get frustrated with the progression and try to instill the integrity back in the game if that's important to you. If it's not important to you, then you do whatever the heck you want. But for us and for what I've experienced here, it still works that way. Still works that way here anyway.
All right, Coach. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Wow, let's go. All right. I got to go Munich, Germany, man. That was such a cool place.
Okay.
Probably because they made me feel like a celebrity over there, right? I never had to drive, never had to do anything. I got every meal paid for, and I was 22, and I was on top of the world, right? So I would go back there, and that's on the bucket list. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What is the most important lesson that you've learned over your career?
Don't have all the answers. If you don't know something, just tell a kid you don't know what the heck's going on right now, and I'll look for it. I'll find an answer, but I don't know how to fix that right now. But
Mm-hmm.
we'll surely look into it. I think it's okay not to have the answer. That gets you into trouble more than it doesn't.
If you weren't coaching, what would you be doing and why?
This is a loaded one too. I've had this answer asked to me before, and the answer I gave was be a garlic farmer. And people go, why are you so weird? Well, okay, that is, but you got to understand with the least amount of land, you plant garlic on your property, you get like 10 times the amount of money off of that plant. And then you can plant it back so you never have to pay for a crop again. It's like garlic is the highest cash crop in the world.
Huh.
Otherwise, I'd be woodworking. I mean, garlic's the weird one. My dad owned a lumber yard. I like doing stuff with my hands. I always have. I think making cool stuff out of wood or some of that stuff that doesn't look like anything and it turns into a finished product is good. My grandpa was the same way, so it's instilled into me.
The garlic farmer one, that's if somebody doesn't make a comment on that after
Yeah,
watching this, I'm gonna
I'm
be
gonna
real
get
disappointed.
our staff's gonna hammer me for it. They're gonna be like, come on, man, you're doing so good up until that point, but I tell you, I gotta be honest, right? Yeah, it's intriguing. Me and my brother have had conversations, to say the least.
So this is a two-part question. Best compliment you've ever received?
That I lost weight and I really haven't. Yeah, you look good, Munz. I haven't worked out at the time. I haven't worked out in 3 years. I appreciate that. Like, way to give me a vote of confidence to go at the gym. Like, sweet man, cool. I just got a haircut.
The other side of compliments is, what's the best insult you've ever gotten?
Yeah, my aunt told me the opposite. Yeah, Ryan, it was Christmas. My Aunt Lucille at the time, and she was getting up there and love her to death. But she goes, "Man, you put on a little bit of weight." Nice to see you too. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. The last question that I posed to everybody that we've had on the show, was there a question that you were expecting? And if so, how would you have answered it?
Say that again.
Was there a question for me that you were expecting to get today? And
Oh,
if so, how would you have answered it?
man, I don't think so, to be honest with you. You surprised me with the Germany conversation, right? Like I thought that was so far in the past. So no, I guess
Hey, that works for me. That means I get to
yeah.
check my boxes.
There you go. You did a heck of a job, man. It was pretty fun. And I know, again, like I said before, it took a while to get connected, but awesome. I hope we can do more, and I hope you get to do more. And if you want to shout out to follow this guy, follow him, man. It's been pretty fun for me just to talk and not have any agenda on the list, to be honest with you. That's refreshing as a coach at times, is just to have a real life conversation with the guy.
And that's what our goal is here. And like I said, I appreciate honestly that you've been probably one of the most communicative coaches, in the sense that when we couldn't link up, it was very quick on the, hey man, this day's just not going to work. Let's keep doubling. And then we got into the season, and I'm watching the games going, well, I probably shouldn't hit him up now. I mean, they're in the thing. I can't imagine he's going to want to sit down and have a 35-minute conversation.
You had 15 minutes,
So,
you had 15 emails in the queue and deleted all of them. I don't think it's a good time. That's
I
awesome.
did, however, we got towards the end of the season, and I was like, oh, I wonder, should I fire this off and see if maybe we do the end of the season thing? And then I was like, well, why? Why wouldn't I just wait, let them get through the bowl game, and then we'll talk next season? And then now we got it on the end. So I want to say thank you very much for joining us. For those of you that are sticking around, there is no overtime this week. This has been Coach Munz of UW-Platteville. I am Carlo Guadagnino, and we'll be right back.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Dingo Talk. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. For more info and to contact the show, you can find us on Twitter @DingoTalk.